right, welcome to Stop Questioning Everything, the official podcast of Drug Receipts. This is our very first live on video episode, so bear with us. This is a work in progress. It will be a big experiment, and you guys are part of it. We are talking about all things going on in the Drug Receipts universe. We'll cover news, latest happenings. We'll talk about art, all kinds of developments. We'll talk about what's going on in our social network, on our social platforms. And we'll also cover all the pillars that make up the Drug Receipts enterprise. We'll talk about art and subversion, science and skepticism, skating, lifestyle, streetwear, all those kinds of things. My name is Arlo Eisenberg, and I'm the artist behind Drug Receipts, and I'm also the host of this podcast. I'm also an X Games gold medalist, and we'll talk more about that as this podcast goes on, because we have some very special guests coming up. Today is January 28th, 2022, in America at least, and this is episode number 3, because we've done 2 episodes prior, but they were both audio only and on Discord, and the content from those episodes might be lost to history because we've had some technical issues. So this might be the very first one on record. Although I think there is some audio salvageable from number 2, but we'll call this kind of the first official podcast. So on the slate for today, we've got, I mentioned, rollerblading will play a theme today. So we've got Tyler Shields, a former national inline vert amateur champion rollerblader. And we've also got the 1995 X Games best trick bronze medalist, Brooke Howard-Smith, will be joining us as well today. And then I mentioned we'll go through some news items, and at the end of the show, we'll talk about some skeptic talk, where we do a little deep dive on some skeptical themes and skeptical incidents that have come up in kind of our Drug Receipts universe. But for now, let's do a routine checkup where we'll check in with our meds, or our queen med, Jessie, and talk to her about some Drug Receipts news. Jessie, are you with us? Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
what's
Jessie.
up?
Hi. All right. So this is a lot different than our daily Marcoms meetings, right? It's a little more dressed up.
Clearly, I took a shower for this. So it's a big deal.
What's that?
I said I took a shower for this, so clearly it's a big deal. And I don't do that.
It looks great. Now I feel underdressed.
You look great. Well,
yeah,
hi, hello. I'm super stoked to be here and dox myself. So
yeah, I know.
But we have some really cool things that have happened in the Drug Receipts community. So you guys might know me as Yes C. My real name is Jessie. And yeah, I'm super stoked to, be a part of the community and guide you guys and, see what's up. So a couple of exciting things have happened recently. We have a new med in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody say hello. He's not here right now, but say hello to SAC Commander when you see him. Mm-hmm. He's our latest med that's joined the group. So that's his name. We didn't choose it. Someone else did, but that is your point of authority now. So
what did his name start out Commander SAC and then Dawn rearranged it to be SAC Commander, or was it vice versa? It was something like that, right?
Yes. I can confirm that it was once Commander SAC, but Dawn did some rearranging and I laughed. So it stuck. And,
you know what? I want to say,
our new mod.
Jessie, I want to take a moment to just say something here, because, I don't want to just assume that everybody knows all the details of everything that's going on, right, in Drug Receipts. So we have a Discord. The first 2 episodes of the podcast happened on the Discord, and that's kind of the nerve center of the community. And so when we talk about SAC Commander, right, and when we talk about being appointed or anointed a med, we're talking about in the Discord community. And our meds are our moderators, right? They're the ones who are moderating our forums, our channels. They welcome people in, guide them through the content, answer questions. It's a demanding role, because we are a 24-hour project, right? And we have a 24-hour network. We have people in every country, so it never sleeps. And so, yeah, and you guys are fielding questions nonstop, and you handle everything graciously. So welcome to the team, SAC Commander, and thank you to all of our meds, Jessie, Dawn, for all the work you do.
Of course. Another thing that's very exciting, and by the way, Arlo, appreciate those very kind words. So I will rewatch that clip multiple times throughout the week when I'm feeling like, I need to pick me up. I'll just refer back. I think we're at 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Okay, yeah.
I'll
put that down in the notes.
Right.
So another cool thing that occurred this week in the IRL realm, the real world realm, is that we were fortunate to meet up with a couple of our local drug receipts friends in a nice little outing that we had earlier this week. I think we have some pictures. How do we? I want to do like a thing. There it is. You go. So Arlo, can you tell us?
Joellen, let's look at the other one, because this is what that was the product that came at the end of the night. But let's show them how the night started. There you go. And so we're kind of doxing some team members here, but we mentioned that we're spread out all over the world. Even just this call right now, our producers in New Zealand, we've got one of our moderators in Bali, but Jesse and I are in Texas, and this meeting that you see here is several of the members who are in Texas, including SAC Commander Sean's there giving the shaka, my good friend Steven and Selena, and there's Jesse and Arlo, and an unnamed bartender in the back, but he did make a good Vietnamese coffee cocktail.
I can confirm. How did you feel about it afterwards?
It was great. And then Joellen, go ahead and you can bring up the drug receipt again. So at the end of the night, because it was a drug receipt event, that was the actual receipt from our dinner at Ngon. Is that right? Did I say it right? Great Vietnamese restaurant in Dallas. And to my knowledge, I left the receipt. I don't know what happened to it afterward. I don't know if someone from our meetup grabbed it or if it actually went to a server, but it's, it is out there in the universe. So, and anybody that wants to see drug receipts like those, the original drug receipts, which were the original inspiration for this project, you can follow at RXCPTS on Instagram. That's the original drug receipts account, and it's just the receipts posted there. And of course, our main account, our main Instagram account is at drug receipts. So speaking of our main account, Jesse, what else do we need to know about what's going on in social?
Well, I think that earlier this week, the little drug receipts local meetup was a great, kind of experiment into our future plans, which are to expand the brand to other cities, bring them over to, I don't want to say too much too soon, but part of our, things to look forward to at Drug Receipts is the fact that we'll be planning some more live events. I know, Arlo, you have a background in live events. I don't know if I can talk about that.
You do.
But, so we're really looking forward to, bringing, making these parties happen, making these meetups happen, maybe even just something casual like a big group dinner, but just ways that we can, start connecting outside of the computer screen, outside of the metaverse, and, really start, bringing, getting with you guys together.
Yeah. So live events are part of our roadmap, right? They are actually built into the roadmap. And with the team that we put together with, Brooke's history is well established now with all the fluff houses and the things that they're doing with Fluff World and the broader non-fungible labs universe. But also Tyler Shields, another one of our founding partners and team members. I mean, he is tied into the gallery community. He's tied into the arts and entertainment and Hollywood communities. I mean, he knows how to throw an event. So and Jesse, you throw events here as well. So we've got a lot of people on our team who are dialed into kind of the live event venues. And it absolutely will be something that we are bringing to the project is meeting everyone out in real life, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to look forward to, and, we can't be everywhere at once, but thanks to the internet, we sure can still connect with you guys. So I will say to stay dialed into our social channels, to stay updated, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all Drug Receipts. And that way you can stay up to date, because we will be doing some giveaways here in the near future. I can't say what, I can't say how. Well, I can, but I don't want to. It'll take the magic away. But just stay up to date with our socials, because you just never know where we'll pop up in your city. We'll pop up in your feed with an opportunity to get on that whitelist, or maybe snag some more pieces from Brooke's collection. I'm saying way too much too soon, so I'm going to stop it there. But we
Jesse,
really
I
do
would
have a
like to
lot.
add something. I would like to add something to that about the conversation about whitelist, because that is, we've talked about our channels and our Discord, but the thing that is talked about the most, and the most questions that all of our meds have to field refer to the whitelist, or they're about the whitelist. And that is something that is high on our priority list. We are coming up with a kind of a comprehensive plan for how the rest of the whitelist spots will be given out, what people can do to earn them, and kind of what the schedule will be for giving those out. So we will be communicating that to you guys soon. Make sure you're following us on the social channels. Make sure you're in the Discord. But we will make sure that we get that communicated out to you guys clearly. So thanks for your patience with that. But we really want you guys to know kind of what our plan is going forward. Joellen, am I echoing? Is my mic screwed up? Do y'all hear that, or is that just me? Because I can hear it. Does anybody else hear it?
No.
If it's just me, then no worries. I just want to make sure that's not, I hope that no one else is having a bad experience hearing me echoing.
Hello.
Echo. It sounds fine now. So I guess it's fine. Let's keep going.
Well, that just about wraps it up, guys. I mean, we're looking forward to hanging out with you some more in real life, on the Discord, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You know how to find us. Official links on the Discord channel. Go for it. But that's all I have.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jesse. And have fun tonight. I know you've got some event stuff that you're working on, so we'll be catching up with you later. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to Double Dose. That's a segment where I will present 2 ideas. I'll kind of get to freeform thought a little bit on a couple of ideas, give you a double dose of content. And the idea is that, the first dose will be our mega dose. It's kind of broader in scope. It will be a big picture idea, kind of talk to some of the broader themes that we cover in drug receipts. And then the second dose will be more of a microdose. We will zoom in, narrow in on something and get a little more granular in scope, really dive into something. So for the first megadose, and we've got a really special treat for you here. For anyone that's listened to the last 2 episodes, you'll be surprised, and I'm sure thrilled to learn that what we're going to talk about is the origin of the name Stop Questioning Everything. The reason is, there's several reasons for doing this, guys. The reason I'm making a big deal about it is because in the first 2 episodes, we've talked about Stop Questioning Everything. That has been the subject for my first megadose in both of our preceding episodes. And now it's going to be 3 episodes running where we talk about the exact same thing. But as I mentioned before, we may have lost the audio from the first 2. And since this will probably be our first episode on record, we want to make sure that we have a record of it. It's fairly important. It is the name of the podcast. And the thinking behind it, I think, is fairly important. And it also speaks a lot to kind of the values of the project. But also another reason that we want to do it here, not just to have it on record, is also because for the first time we have a visual format. And so we've got some visual aids that we will bring up as we talk about it. And we think that it adds a little bit to the conversation. But we'll try to do a slightly more cursory explanation of it so that we don't run over too much ground that we've covered many times before. But so the name is Stop Questioning Everything. And the inspiration was from the saying, the maxim, the axiom, whatever you want to call it, that is question everything, right? We hear this a lot. And, or I'll tell you the real origin, Joel, and if you want to bring up the first photo of Mark Cuban wearing the shirt that says question authority, because that was the true inspiration for this conversation. There it is. Oh, she got it. Perfect. So what we're going to show you later are going to be a bunch of Photoshop versions, but this is actually the undoctored photo that started the conversation. And it's a picture of Mark Cuban wearing a shirt that says question authority. And Jessie actually sent me this photo because she knows 1 or 2 of the people in this photo. So it was just, she was sending it to me for an unrelated reason, but it got my gears turning because this is something that I've been thinking about, or had been thinking about a lot, was this idea, this sort of idealistic call to arms to question everything, which in former generations would have been a really virtuous, noble cause, right? To speak truth to power, to not to be subservient to authority, but to push back. And there's real value in that, right? But what's happened is that in our generation now, with the dynamics of the information age and the recent dynamics in politics and media, and with the internet and Facebook and all these things, it seems like, and in particular with sort of this feeling that I'm talking about can be encapsulated in the phrase "do your own research." Right? When I say that, we all know what I'm talking about. And so when you think about question everything or question authority in that context, in this present context, it starts to not sound quite so virtuous. It starts to sound more like a license to deny evidence, or to be a science denier, or to deny expertise, right? To question the experts. And don't get me wrong, there is some value in that. But if you're going to question the experts, then you've got to do it responsibly, and it's got to be purposeful. And you should. It's hard to say this, because what I want to say is you should do your research. But I've already established that can become a cringy thing to say in present times. God, I said I wouldn't go into a deep thing about, but so I think you've got the idea. So stop questioning everything came out of this exploration, or this idea of like, how can we modify this call to arms, which has always been question authority or question everything? How could we update it to make it appropriate for our times now, so that it implores us to not just question everything, but to do it responsibly? And so now, Joellen, let's go ahead and look at some of these photos. So there's actually a thread started in our Skeptic channel on our Discord, on the Drug Receipts Discord, where I kind of posed this question, like, how could we change or how could we update question everything so that it kind of reflected this new, updated, nuanced conversation? And so just a note here, like, we're using question authority, which is what Cuban's shirt said, and question everything kind of interchangeably. It's kind of the same idea. So let's look at the next one here. So one of the ideas that we came up with was question your biases, which I think is great because if you're going to question authority, or if you're going to question everything, the thing that we have to start questioning first is always ourselves. I mean, our brains, or brains in general, human brains, are so good at deceiving us or portraying things in a way that sort of mislead us. And the brains that each of us interact with most in our lives will always be the ones inside our own heads. So you've always got to start with questioning your own biases. So I thought that was a really clever line. Let's look at another one. Stop questioning authority is kind of where we ended up at the end of the conversation. I think that I misled Joellen here, because I tried to put them in order and somehow I screwed that up. But neither here nor there. You'll see them all eventually. But so stop questioning authority, right? Because his shirt said question authority. So the rejoinder is stop questioning authority. And then we just sort of, changed that into stop questioning everything. And then we came up with, let's see if we can do the SQE logo, which, by the way, these are all Photoshop. Mark Cuban does not own that shirt yet, but hopefully one day he will have one. Maybe we'll have to send him one. But so then that turned into the logo and the name of the podcast. Our first 100 members that joined our Discord are getting a super exclusive limited edition version of that shirt, not in that colorway. But since now it is the name of our podcast, we will absolutely be making merch. And so hopefully all of you will be able to pick up your own Stop Questioning Everything t-shirt. And perhaps it will be in black, just like that one that Mark Cuban is allegedly wearing. Okay, so that's thank you, Joellen, for that. Guys, as we said, this is our first episode, so a lot of it is kind of a work in progress, but I think that went pretty well. Thank you, Joellen. And that's the story behind Stop Questioning Everything with photos. So for the microdose, what I'd like to talk about, and this is a brand new subject, so you guys can breathe a sigh of relief. But I made a joke when I introduced Tyler Shields, who is the one of the most collected, highly sought after, highly regarded fine art photographers of our generation. But I made the joke that we were having on the former amateur inline world champion, which is true. Both those things are true. He is like this top tier fine art photographer, but he also is a former inline champion. Same thing with Brooke. Brooke really did win a bronze medal in the X Games in 1995, if I'm getting my years right. And I really did win a gold medal in the X Games in 1996, I believe it was. So we really do all have rollerblading in our background. And in that way, this is a rollerblading related project, right? Rollerblading goes everywhere I go. It's definitely a big part of who I am and my identity. And the fact that the three forming partners are all, we all have a background in rollerblading is how we know each other. We spent, the better part of our formative years rollerblading, traveling the world, skating, going to contests, doing demos, and just hanging out. So this conversation around, well, what kind of project then is Drug Receipts? Is Drug Receipts a rollerblading project? The first time that we announced the NFT release, which is kind of the sort of the big driving force behind the project right now. The first time we announced it was on the Jump Street podcast, which is a rollerblading podcast, which seemed very natural to us, right? That the first audience that we introduced it to would be a rollerblading audience. But I think that there has been some confusion around, well, so what does that mean? I think, there's some slight blowback in some circles of the rollerblading community. They're like, oh, well, who are Arlo, Brooke, and Tyler to be selling, trying to shill stuff to rollerbladers? Where have they been? As if our bona fides weren't fully or well enough established. But then even more important, and I don't mean to put too much emphasis on that, because the response from the rollerblading community has been overwhelmingly warm and receptive. And we've had a lot of support from our good friends in rollerblading and from the rollerblading community. So that is generally positive. But the real reason I bring it up is because in some of our online discussions, in our Discord discussions, I've heard people who do not come from the rollerblading community say, oh, hold on. Is this a place for us too? Because we're not skaters. Are we allowed to be here, or is this just for skaters? And I want to make it very clear that absolutely, this is for everyone. This project was never conceived of as a rollerblading project. It was always envisioned as being much bigger than that. And there is kind of a distinction between something that is rollerblading related, that has ties to rollerblading, as we all do, and something that is a rollerblading project, right? Our market is not targeted at rollerbladers, or just rollerbladers. And there's kind of another discussion that ties in with that I think is somewhat interesting. Maybe I'll get into it more with Brooke and Tyler. But it's this idea of identity at all. I gravitate toward, or I would like to celebrate and emphasize the things that are inclusive, right? That make it possible for everyone to be a part of it. We can have shared values around the ideals of art and expression and community and even subversion, right? These are all things that we can kind of like intellectually and emotionally align our values on. But something like being a rollerblader is not exactly inclusive. That is sort of an exclusive group by nature and by definition. Right. And so that is the kind of group where it is defined as much by who is not a rollerblader as by who is. So you get these schisms between skateboarders and rollerbladers, or action sports athletes and people who are not into action sports. And so the best parts of rollerblading and skateboarding and any of those other kind of tribes are the values that we extol here in Drug Receipts. But the values like individualism and art and creative expression and all those things. And so I think by making those the central features of Drug Receipts, then it is open to communities like rollerbladers, that one that's dear to my heart, that also values or shares all those same values. but without limiting it to just the people who might identify by whatever their preferred lifestyle or passion is, whether it be rollerblading or skateboarding or skydiving, whatever it is. Our community, my community, is rollerbladers, and they're coming along for the ride. But the drug receipts community is for people that align with the same artistic values. So I hope that that's clear. You know what? Let's go ahead and do it. Let's bring on Brooke and Tyler, and we can start to expand this conversation outward. And I'll give them proper introductions now, because they are not just former rollerblading medalists, right? We sort of pay Tyler off. We have established, and he doesn't, right. I don't know how much of an introduction he needs, but Tyler is, one of the, if not the most collectible, most highly regarded fine art photographers of our time. And I keep saying that, but it is not just like idle chatter. It's not just a friend like hyping up his, one of his best friends. He is one of the only living artists to have had a solo exhibition in Sotheby's. That is a big deal. He has sold out exhibitions in galleries across the world. He has broken records on Sotheby's Instagram for having the most posted, most liked photos. So his audience and his prestige is vast and well documented. And we also have Brooke Howard-Smith on, who
you should have started with me. You've got to ramp these things up. Looks like this is going to be a letdown.
You know what? There's no way to do it between you two guys, so I just kind of have to make a choice. It's like a Sophie's choice.
Can you make some stuff up at the end of mine? Then
Arlo, can I introduce Brooke?
Yeah, let's do that. That's great. Okay. I love it. Yeah.
Brooke Howard-Smith, the inventor of the Post-it note.
Oh, that's right. Remember that? Yep.
Discovered the camera in 1985 in the Australian jungle. He is the inventor of photography.
Yep.
He also invented the internet. And he has been living on an ocean liner. He has been living on an ocean liner called the Coupe d'Ivoire, sailing to both poles. And he is typically responsible for all happiness in the world.
Very
most
well done.
Happiness in the world. Most happiness. Like there's some creepy happiness I'm not responsible for.
That's not him.
That's
most happiness.
That's not mine.
If I can add just a couple of notes to that, Brooke, because that was a spectacular intro.
Thank you.
But more than, and guys, we're going to talk about our origin story a little bit, how we all three came together. But more than anyone on this stage, right, Brooke is the one who brings the credibility and the cachet to this project. What Brooke has been doing with Fluff World, and as we've mentioned, with the broader non-fungible labs community. I mean, you talk about Tyler being the sort of one of the most highly regarded fine art photographers of our generation. Well, what Brooke and his team are doing, they are the most respected movers in the NFT space. The way that they are building community, building value for their members, and repeatedly, just time after time. The fact that we had a surge in interest with our community. We started a Discord. We had a modest beginning with about 300 members or something, and then in 24 to 48 hours, it ballooned to over 5,000 members. We got mentioned in some other alpha channels where people are talking about projects of note. But the only reason we have any that we're on anyone's radar is because Brooke's name is associated with the project. So yes, it's hard to overstate how much value Brooke adds to this project and how much sort of creative genius and creative energy he brings to all the projects that he's involved with. So really lucky and proud to call him a friend, but also to be able to be doing this project together with him.
I also just want to say that I'm very disappointed in myself. I remember being at the X Games. I was in first place, and I'm the only one on this that doesn't have an X Games medal. You don't have an X Games
gold medal.
And I'm so disappointed.
You did win a championship.
I did. I won the championship, but I didn't win an X Games medal, and I'm so disappointed in myself. And I knew that day that something like this would happen one day. Now
here would be a day where we'd all be showing our medals.
Anyone listening to this, if you ever get the chance, make sure you win the medal, because you will regret it if you don't.
Yeah. I imagine like this is kind of the movie that they didn't make, the Eminem movie they didn't make, because you had one shot. and you did not take your chance to go. That opportunity came. Yeah, you know the story.
It was gone.
So,
yeah. I actually had 2 shots. That was the worst part.
Oh man. Well, that was I feel like we don't have any time for anything else. It was a long series of intros, but it's awesome to see you all. And this is our first time, doing this together. We've been on a number of calls together talking about the project. Our very first time doing it publicly like this, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely, that's a good point. Thanks for saying that. So we've had 3. This is our 3rd episode. The first episode, which was audio only, it was Tyler and I. Is that right? And then the second episode, which was audio and only, was Brooke and I. So this is the first time we've had all 3 of us together. So absolutely. So, and again, just another reason why this first episode, right, is kind of like, this will be our foundational episode to lay the foundation for everything to come after it. And it gives us an opportunity to talk about like some kind of, things like the origin story, like how this thing even came to be, how it came to be that the 3 of us are here on stage together doing this.
Yeah, I mean, Arlo, if I could ask for a second, because I know we talked about this on the audio only, so I would love to kind of bring this up now as this one will be saved. But one of the things that was so fascinating was hearing the story about how long you've been making art, which I know some people don't have any idea that you've been an artist for, I don't know, 25 years. Maybe more. I don't want to age you, but long time.
Well, I'm doing fine aging myself, but when does someone start becoming an artist? I've always identified it as an artist, but professionally, I've been creating work for at least the last 30 years.
Right. And so it was interesting because when I was growing up, I was around Arlo and I was around Brooke, and both of them were 2 of the first people that I ever met in my life who lived what I like to refer to as like outside the matrix. Like you guys both kind of did your own things, and you both live very artistic lifestyles, right? Like Arlo was constantly on the computer, constantly trying to build things. Brooke was constantly creating these like these essentially like global brands and creating these teams, and you guys were creating Senate together and all these things. And now Brooke is gone. He couldn't take the compliments.
You really offended him.
Yeah.
He messed up.
Yep.
Don't ever bring up the global brands. That's Brooke's kryptonite.
That's it. But for you, Arlo, it's like
I'm back.
He's back.
Okay, that's one warning, buddy.
Yeah, sorry. No more compliments for you. But I think it's really interesting because like my I can speak for myself. My entire life has been unconventional. And I've known you both a long time, and both of your lives, from what I know, have been very unconventional as well. And so, Arlo, what was it that led you down the path of, creating the drug receipts? Like, you told a great story, but I'd love to hear that again. And then after that, Brooke, what was it that got you into the NFT world? And how did that happen? Right. And then I think that kind of helps us all come together.
Yeah, the old lining up the 2 questions at once. Now Brooke's got, I'm going to give Brooke a bit of time to think about his answer.
I like it.
And I like, Tyler, that you've touched on kind of the broader theme. It speaks to more than just sort of when I started drawing drug receipts, but just the very idea of challenging convention, right? I mean, it's why this project exists. One of the central themes of drug receipts is challenge, your own expectations, challenge your own biases, challenge conventions. The name of the podcast is sort of tongue in cheek. It's stop questioning everything. But really we are imploring you to question everything, just do it responsibly. And hopefully we can, through some of the discussions we have here and the things we expose our audience to, we will give you some of the tools to do that. But the way that I started Drug Receipts is, as you mentioned, Tyler, I've always been an artist. I've always created. I've had a lot of projects that I work on. But I've also always pretty much had a day job. Even if my day job, no matter how cool and awesome it was, if my day job was Senate, or if my day job was doing Ghost Brand or Franklin State, or working for Paul Frank, or working with my father now at our agency, when you have deadlines and you have work, that can be consuming. So one thing that I've always done throughout my life is whenever I have an opportunity to do something creative that is not tied to work, or my day job, so to speak, I always say yes first, and then I figure out how I'm going to make time for it later. So whether it's painting a mural, or if someone invites me to, be part of a panel, or just whatever opportunity I get, I always say yes, because I like to create or carve space into my life for pure creative exploration. And so one of the ways that I did that for myself was when we would go out to work lunches, right? Because work generously grants you 1 hour a day that you can kind of have yourself, or you get to go eat something. And you can talk about whatever you want with your coworkers or whatever. But so in that 1 hour respite from my day job, at the end of the meal, the servers would always bring a receipt, and they bring a pen with it. And so as an artist, I would start doodling on the receipts. And then after a while of doing that, these repeated lunches, drawing the receipts, the drawings started to get a little more elaborate. From the very beginning, they were always about drugs for some reason. I just thought that was funny. And then after a while of doing that, one of my coworkers said, because it was becoming a thing, I was doing it all the time. She said, why don't you, start posting those, make an account for your receipts and start posting them. And this was about probably 5 or 6 years ago. And so I did. And then once there was an account, this is sort of in the same spirit of just do it, just commit to something creative, and then just figure out how to do it afterwards, which is kind of what we're doing here, but on a big scale. But so once there was an account for it, and there was just sort of something compelling me to keep doing it, then I did. And the drawings kept evolving from there. They kept getting more elaborate. It started to build an audience. And then 5 years later, 6 years later, whatever it was, when you guys each came to me and started talking about, hey, there's an opportunity here in the NFT space, and we really, we think that you've kind of got the artistic chops to do it. It just so happened that this thing, which I just sort of did on a whim, on a lark, with no big vision in mind, I was just drawing because it gave me an opportunity to draw. But when we wanted a project, I had 5 years of creative collateral built up, a whole universe, a whole stable of art and characters ready to go. And so all we had to do was kind of turn it up and launch it, make it go live.
And it was funny because Brooke and I, correct me if I'm wrong, but we both kind of came to you on the same day, right?
It was within 24 hours, separately, right. Completely independent. No idea that the other was contacting me. Yeah. Neither of you guys, I'm sure, had talked to each other in years. It was incredible, honestly, the timing. And it put my head in a vice for a brief moment, because I thought, just like when Brooke said, I was going to have this impossible decision of which highly acclaimed best friend I'm going to have to introduce first. Well, I was going to have to make this decision: which highly acclaimed best friend am I going to partner with to do this NFT project? But fortunately, when I pitched it back to both of you guys, like, hey, would y'all be open to just putting all of our heads together? You both were like way into it. So I think it's the best of all worlds.
The better part of that story is that I had messaged Tyler about August 2021 to say, hey, I've got this project with rabbits in it. Do you want to be a part of that?
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that one's done $140 million. So I don't feel bad about it, Tyler.
Because at times, like, I'm good. Yeah,
fine. I was busy that day.
Good luck with your rabbits.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Tyler, like, that's the other thing, is that both projects have like a solid rabbit theme, and that Tyler's done some really amazing work. And I did say, technically, it was actually after the launch, and I have nothing to give away in that. But a sense of like wanting to collaborate with Tyler was definitely on my radar. Yep. And then so that this just became perfect for me. It's a no-brainer. And again, like this, it feels like, oopsie, just turn off my phone, sorry. It does feel like a natural fit for sure, 100%.
Yeah, it's great. It does feel natural.
So Arlo, just one more kind of follow up on all of that, because I think that's really amazing for people to hear, is like, you've been doing this for, 5 or 6 years, as you said, and it wasn't something that you were like, oh, I'm going to get paid for this, or, oh, I'm going to sell these. Like, you did it as a creative outlet, right?
Exactly.
And that, I think, is really important to me, because like, I know when I started photography, I didn't even know that people bought prints of photographs. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't Instagram or Twitter, and none of that stuff existed. So it wasn't even, I was just like, oh, I'm just going to take pictures. And then one day someone was like, can I put one of these on my wall? And I was like, that's a thing? Because I just wanted to make stuff because I just had to.
It's a great point. And
right.
Who am I cutting off here, Tyler? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
But so it also, another nice aspect of that, Tyler, is it gave me the freedom to just sort of create art, for its own sake, but also I didn't have to worry about when each of you guys approached me, there was, we didn't instantly say, oh, let's just use drug receipts. It was kind of like, hey, let's do something with NFTs. You'll be the artist. Like, what's that going to look like? And so there probably was some thought, like maybe we'll come up with something new, right? It will be a new project.
Yeah.
But if we'd done it that way, then there would have been sort of this added pressure it's like, you've got to start anticipating what do you think the audience will want, or what, you start being more calculated. But since we're using the art that I did for 5 years unfettered and, not worried about anyone else's expectations, it is a more pure expression, right, of my own art. And so now that we're able to just kind of leverage that into this new project, it gives it kind of a more credible and sort of a deeper backstory.
Yeah, I remember talking to Brooke early on and being like, we got to see if he's open to the idea of doing the drug receipts. Like both of us were like, I hope he goes for that. Like, that's where we want to go.
That's good.
Yeah, especially I think it's missing in the NFT community right now. And I know that this is scheduled for later. I think Arlo, this part of the conversation. But people have built a whole bunch of interesting profile photos. Then some of them transition to a more cultural into a cultural world. But no one has built like a project that straddles NFT and in real life branding. In my mind, like a fit for purpose omni brand that sits across both the meat world and the metaverse. And so that's what I love about this, is the art is amazing as a profile photo, but it's also something that could quite easily be a piece of art on a wall, or it could also be a piece of art on clothing. And it's completely ubiquitous. A whole bunch of the profile stuff that is really soaring right now is 3D, generated in Unreal, Unity or Blender or Maya, and then it's not really all that applicable for a brand. So exactly. I love that, and I love the idea. Oh, sorry, go.
No, that leads me to my next question for Arlo, which is, Arlo, you went from using, a waiter or waitress's pen and an actual drug receipt to then what was the transition to now creating these? Like, how do you get from A to Z there?
You know what? I'm going to answer that. And I'm going to, you'll be happy to know I'm going to answer that. But someone from our Discord community actually asked the exact same question. So I'm going to read their question as well to kind of bring them into the conversation a bit. So one major difference of this format, I think everything is better that we're, now we're live and online and people can see us, and it brings a level of intimacy. But the one thing that I do miss, or I think that the format misses, is being able to bring people in to add their voice, which we were able to do in Discord. It's something that we're working on. I think that we'll be able to do it where we will be able to bring people in from the Discord to ask a question. I don't think we've got it worked out for this episode, but so for now, we are asking people just, write your questions in the Discord, write them in the YouTube chat, and our moderators, our meds, will help to filter them to us. And we will be answering some of your questions later on in the show. But just know that we are also trying to figure out how we can get your voices worked into the show as well. And in particular, Dia, we haven't forgotten about you. Dia, I think, it added a lot to our first 2 conversations. So we definitely want to make sure we can get her voice heard as well. But so one of the write-ins that we got in our Discord channel was from Luke. And I know Luke's name in real life. I don't know if I can pronounce his Discord handle, Luke's Dill or Luke's DLL. But he said exactly like you said, Tyler. He said this started out as something done as a creative outlet to leave for the servers, literally hand-drawn drugs on receipts. He said, has anyone ever chased you down afterwards or thanked you, or have you developed any relationships with any of those people? Or did you just do it and leave quickly where they weren't aware of what was going on? His is a 2-part question, Tyler. The second part is the same one you asked. So I'm going to answer that first one first really quickly. But yes, I do typically, I draw them and then I leave. I don't personally hand it to anyone. I don't wait to see them get it. I just sort of like leaving it behind, and then just whatever happens. There's something just, I don't know, the ephemeral quality of that. It just something that feels, I think, kind of nice about that. It's almost like the perfect kind of charity, right? Where you're not expecting something, you just leave it, and then whatever happens, happens, and hopefully someone derives some pleasure from it. But because, I frequent a lot of the same places, in my own local radius, all the time, I go back to a lot of same places over and over again. So some places I go in and they're like, oh, drug receipts. Or the kind of one of the ways that this is backfiring a little bit is now it's like if I go into a place where I've frequented and they are expecting a drug receipt, so they're kind of like waiting for it. And it's like, I don't always have time to sit there and do a drug receipt. So I feel bad about that. So I started carrying stickers so I can leave a sticker and say, I can't do a whole drug receipt next time, but here's a sticker or something. Listen, if you have a better solution, I'm all ears, but I cannot draw a drug receipt every time.
You're gonna only be eating at home from now on. Once
I know
this
it is
project comes out.
starting to close off the places I can go.
So like I have an interesting story. I think it's an interesting story that could be like the future of this, where and way back in the day, there was the Olympics were on in France and a Winter Olympics, and that NBC took their team out, like 30 people out to eat at this fancy restaurant. And when they got to the end of the meal, they realized they hadn't brought any traveler's checks, no money, nothing. And they started panicking and they're shitting themselves. And they'd been a little bit loud and fun throughout the night. And finally, this little old man gets up from a corner. He's been eating a meal by himself, goes up to the maitre d' and he scribbles on a piece of paper and he walks out and the maitre d' comes on and goes, "It's fine, it's done." And it was Picasso. And so Picasso just did a little drawing, boom, and the meal's taken care of. And it usually takes us 20, 30 minutes to get into comparing Arlo to Picasso. But my guess is if we can ever get to a point where this pays for our meal, I feel like this entire venture, all the effort is
well worth it. Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to feel like I'm fact checking you in real time.
Oh,
I'm really
fuck you.
Did you just say that Picasso was at the Winter X Games?
Olympics.
No,
Arlo,
Olympics.
listen to the story.
You only have X Games on the mind, which
It's
you
on
just
the
are
brain.
trying to do to hurt me because I don't have a fucking medal.
I know.
Take
I'm
that
twisting the knife, huh, Tyler?
Take that
Sorry.
kind of shit into the skeptics channel, Arlo.
Sorry. I misheard
We
it.
fact check the fact checkers.
Okay,
buddy.
so now if I can ask Brooke.
Yeah.
Wait, no, because I never got to answer. Right. The second part of the question is the question you actually asked. And so what he said is, Luke, this is Luke continuing. He said, I've been curious about the creative aspects. You had to take an analog thing, right, drawing the receipts, and then transition to the digital world. How long was that process? Did it take 6 months, a year, longer? And obviously, without giving too much about the project or minting process, and did you have any creative hurdles to overcome doing that? And were there always definable characters, or did that evolve as the digital process evolved? So, right. So over the 5 years of drawing the receipts, the characters kind of were established, right? And there are more than we've introduced into the drug receipts, the NFT universe. Right now we have 4 main characters, which are Cap, which is the capsule, Tabby, which is the tablet. You can see down in the Stop Questioning Everything logo, a version of Tabby. We have Rex, who's the RX pill bottle, and we have Siren, who is the syringe. Those are the 4 main characters. And those were chosen thoughtfully because they all represent controlled substances. They could be illegal. They could be prescriptive. So it's ambiguous deliberately. I have some other characters that are not quite as vague or ambiguous. I have a mushroom that I've drawn. I have an acid tab that I've drawn. And we specifically edited those out because I don't think that they quite capture the values of the community as perfectly as the 4 we've chosen. And as far as transferring or going from analog to digital, the truth is most of my creative career has been digital, right? I've been creating graphics online, been creating shirt graphics online, and I've even been creating my characters online. I mean, not online, but on the computer, like in Illustrator and things like that. And so when I started drawing drug receipts and doodling on receipts, that's actually what took a little bit of adapting to. That was different than my normal process. I've always sketched and drawn, but that started to formalize the process a little more because I was drawing basically every day or a lot more regularly. But then, yes, once I had the characters established as doodles, then reformulating formatting them back into the digital world did take some thinking, right? Because you have to solve, how are the reflections going to work? What are colors going to look like? How, what kind of treatment do you want them to look like? Are they going to look glossy and clean? Are they going to look sketched and, textured? So I definitely, all those had to be deliberate choices. But the characters now where we've arrived, I just love them. I think that they're great. It feels like kind of like a final form of the characters that started out in the sketches. And they are a little bit different qualitatively. Like we showed earlier, the drug receipt that I drew last night or whenever it was when we went out to dinner. Those characters are a little looser, right, than the digital ones, but also some of the features, like the hands are a little less defined. They're not quite as sort of like street art. They're a lot looser and rougher. So yeah, I hope that answers y'all's question a little bit.
Yeah, very good. And so now, Brooke.
Not COVID. Yep. Keep going.
So basically, you and I have talked periodically over the years. Brooke is someone as like Arlo. Also, Arlo, by the way, your daughter is in here, and she said that you cannot cook. So shots have been fired. We'll get to that later.
I don't know how relevant that is for the
Did I claim to
podcast,
cook?
right?
Yeah.
Did I claim to cook?
No. She just said, because you're going to have to do the drug receipts to
grateful.
pay for all your dinners because.
Oh, I see.
There
So
you go.
that was relevant. Okay. Yeah.
That was relevant. Yes.
Hi, babe.
So, what's interesting to me is like, as I met both of these guys in periods of my life, both of them had said things to me that really shaped my life in different periods. And Brooke actually said something to me once that really like stuck with me, which was he was in an argument with someone and he was yelling at them to do something and they said they couldn't. And then he threw them the car keys and he said, "I don't give a shit about the car. It's just plastic and metal. It's not real. It's not worth anyone's life." And for whatever reason, that always stuck with me. And you always kind of stuck with me in that way.
You know that because that was this out. Arlo and I went from having no money to making a lot of money very quickly when Senate blew up, and I went and tried to buy a Saab with cash. I had $40,000 cash, and I went and tried to buy this car with Jess Darrenforth, and they thought I was a drug dealer, so they wouldn't sell me. And there was an Audi dealer next door, and the Germans will sell you anything. So boom, they sold me the Audi, green leather interior. It was a beautiful car. It's the first year the Audi A4 came out, and that Audi was treated so terribly. And just plastic and metal. And people really took that to heart when Jess Darrenforth and Ethan Jenkins sold that car without me knowing. I got kicked out of the country. We don't need to go over the kicked out of the country story. But then they just did, like not long after, I was like, "Oh, how's the car going?" It's going great. Everything's great. It's fine. And then I see them boating. They went and bought a boat with the car money.
No way.
So they really took that to heart too, Tyler. It's just
Was that after you got kicked out of the country?
Yeah. So they were like, there was no way I was coming back, and they're like, "Fuck it, we'll sell this car."
So how do you go from being the California condor and inventing the Post-it note to kind of where you are now? What was your first? And again, excuse me if anyone knows this story, but when did you kind of first discover the crypto world, and then what led you into the NFT world?
Yeah, I've been involved in content for a very long time. So I came home to New Zealand, another story for another day. But the easiest job was television presenting. Like, it's as easy as skating. Talking about skating was super easy. And there was a show called XSTV on our local television station. And they would let me go out, get drunk, and just commentate crazy clips, a little bit like those crazy clip show.
The role you were born to play.
Yeah, that's right. That guy on a unicycle is trying to jump over a flaming barrel. And I would just kind of literally watch it live and record as I was watching. They're a great show. It was a great show. And then that led to TV and like an interest in content. I've always felt like there are some exceptional content creators out there that are able to build things that we all love, like Arlo's art, or like Lord's music, or the Flight of the Conchords. I'm familiar with all those things. And I was lucky enough to get to work with some of these exceptional content creators. And then when crypto started to surge in 2017, I started to get into it. And a very good friend of mine, Aaron McDonald, who is now my collaborator, my co-founder at Non-Fungible Labs, invested in a company that I had that was helping these great content creators kind of build purposeful content and communities. And it took a while, but in February 8th, 2021, I got a call from Aaron. He said, you need to learn what an NFT is. So like, it's not even a year ago, guys. So I had a solid understanding of blockchain, and I had a solid understanding of DeFi and smart contracts. But what I didn't understand, and this the crazy thing about this journey, every single day, I get a better understanding of how powerful these tools are in terms of transformative, systemic tools that will help change the way that creators communicate with communities, build communities, and share value, exchange value in communities. It's fucking mind-blowing how much they will change everything we do. And we're experimenting with that now, obviously, with Non-Fungible Labs. You know, we've got a party on the 11th in LA. We've got a party at Fluff House. LA is for the Super Bowl. It's at the Peterson Auto Museum. And, you know,
which, by the way, Tyler, you need a place to stay around the 11th in LA.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Fair warning.
Exactly. But the sense is like we can drop for our members. We're able to drop them tickets to that, different experiences when they get there based on the NFTs they have. Within our community, it's built out these sub communities of people that are like June Crew or Lambo Crew, and the communication is completely barrierless. There's no third party like Facebook or Instagram that's throttling the communication between people who have a similar interest. It's direct communication and direct funding, you know, and it's truly incredible how powerful that is. I think I've mentioned to you guys, I've done the math for you, that a musician, micro communities are the most powerful communities in this ecosystem. A musician that has 5,000 dedicated fans that want to hear 3 years worth of music, go to 3 years worth of shows and get some merch, 3 years worth of content, merch, and music. 5,000 of them give that musician $200 each for 3 years, and that musician gets $1 million. You know, how many musicians out there right now are on $330,000 a year? 5,000 fans. It's fucking insane. So that's my monologue.
Yeah.
That was great. Hey, Tyler, I'm going to kick it back to you because you and Brooke both contacted me within 24 hours of each other. You both had the same idea. So obviously you're active in the NFT space as well. We've talked about your credentials as an artist and a photographer, but why don't you talk to us a little bit about your background in NFTs?
Yeah. So I got into Bitcoin when it was probably $50 or $60, which was awesome. And, you know, it was one of those things where a lot of the things that I've done in my life, I will be like, oh, this is going to be the thing. And then I go to a couple of my friends and I say, guys, this is going to be the thing. And then they all say, no, it's not. And then I'm like, yes, it is. And then when I remember like when Bitcoin hit $1,000, you know, that was like, oh my God. And one of my friends had bought some at $50, which he sold at $100. And so he was like, my life is ruined, you know, whatever. And so I kind of started going down that road. I had mining. I had a whole mining thing. I was like really, really into it for a long time. And then as other ones started to come, I started to get into that. And, you know, I got into like VeChain very early, which is one that Peter Thiel stocked and all that. And so I got into a lot of crypto kind of early on. I got rid of all my stocks. I went all in on crypto probably around like 2016, maybe. Yeah, by 2016, I think I was very, very heavy in, but I was probably in maybe a couple years, maybe 4 years before that.
So fine art photography is just your side hustle.
Yeah, no. No, I mean, you know, for me, it was never even about like, oh, I'm going to get rich off this. I didn't, you know, that was never my plan, right? I wasn't like, oh, I just really loved the concept of it. I loved the idea of it, and I loved where it could go in the future. It was very difficult for people to get in early on. You know, the onboarding process was much harder than it is now. But I've got a lot of people I was like the person that set up their crypto thing for them. And so I always loved that little like rush of that. And then, as I was obviously into that, a couple different people started kind of telling me about NFTs. I think maybe it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I had talked to Sotheby's about it, and they were talking to me about a couple of the different NFT artists, and then someone had mentioned to me there's this guy Beeple that does one every single day, and blah blah blah. And so, it was one of those things where at that time photography was not in the NFT space, so I personally didn't dive into it. And then I'd say probably around the same time as Brooke, it kind of came out, and there's like, oh, still photographs are starting to be a thing. And then I had talked to Steve Aoki, and so Steve and I have been friends for a long, long time. And I said, hey, what do you think about the NFT space? Because Steve's like very ahead of the curve on stuff. And he said, man, I'm going all in. I love it. It's amazing. And if you need any help kind of getting into the world, like, I'd love to help you. So Steve kind of onboarded me to Foundation and Super Rare and some of those other things like pretty early on. And I think when I got onto Super Rare, there was maybe only like 3 or 4 photographers on it. Now there's obviously much more. But what excited me was years ago, and I know Arlo, you know of this, and Brooke, I think you know this, but I blew up a Rolls Royce, and I've kind of done all these crazy videos. Mm-hmm. And I remembered when I was doing the videos, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get this crazy slow-mo camera, and I'm gonna shoot this on film, and I'm gonna do that. I spent all this money making these videos, and I remember one day my accountant was like, "What are you doing all these crazy videos? You make the photographs. People buy the photographs." And I said, one day people will be able to buy the videos. And so I called him after the first NFT, because it was the Rolls Royce blowing up. I said, someone bought the video.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, that only took 7 years. So yeah, that's the long and short of my kind of journey into this world.
That's amazing. And you've mentioned, selling your videos, but you've had a couple of NFT releases.
Yeah.
And you're selling your own work in that space.
And that was one of the things too, is, when I did my first like 100 photography profile picture PFP kind of drop. Mm-hmm. And Arlo, I went to Arlo, as I do with a lot of things when I need help on a certain aspect, because Arlo is like the master of all these things. So I said, Arlo, I'm doing this thing. It's called NFTs. Arlo, did you know about it at that point, really? Or was I like one of the first people that kind of told you about it, or you already knew about it? I don't remember that.
Good question.
Well, whatever. Anyway,
probably would have been, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right.
Probably would have been
Yeah. And so I said, I'm doing this thing. I'm making 100. Arlo actually helped me do it. And then after Arlo helped me do it, mine sold out in like 12 minutes. It was crazy. It was amazing. And then I started thinking, man, I got to do this for Arlo. And then that was when I called up Arlo, and he goes, I think Brooke had called you right before I did, or something like that, right? He goes, Brooke just called me.
Then you, then came together. So what is it, Brooke? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted. Oh, the boomer. Awesome. Good guy. I was just saying I'm number one. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. As I'm listening to all this, I'm wondering, and I'm looking at this stage, I'm wondering, what does Brooke do to have to get on one name status? I see Arlo and I see Tyler, and then why do we have Brooke Howard-Smith? Why so formal? You got
it's interesting. It's hard to see which one is more kind of egotistical, right? The sense of like you guys thinking you're Madonna, or me kind of making people enunciate or
say the whole thing.
Both of them, there's an argument for both of those, right?
I agree.
Like both are pretty self-centered.
Well, so guys, we've talked about our rollerblading background, and we've talked about how supportive rollerbladers and the rollerblading community have been of this project and of us. But so I'd like to really drive home that point. So I want to do a live unboxing if you guys think that we can, if y'all will indulge me this.
But wow.
I think you guys also can be expecting a package like this coming from.
Oh, wow. This is a t-shirt?
No. This is from Matt Lindemuth. This is beer. This is from his brewery.
Oh.
So Matt Lindemuth, he of the Triple Lindy, the first one ever to attempt and maybe land a triple backflip on vert. So Matt is a former, pro skater who we all came up with, a good friend of ours. But so he has a brewery now out in Delaware, Dewey, Delaware. Yeah, and so the brewery is Dewey Brewery. Doesn't that sound kind of like saying rural juror? Dewey
Rural
Brewery?
Juror. I love that
Dewey
show.
Brewery.
Okay, this is like impromptu product placement, Arlo.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
This is the real future of NFTs, right?
So can I, when I'm doing my things that NFTs will do. So Matt Lindemuth, he's an original member here at Drug Receipts, one of our original folks, and he's got this amazing beer. Well, I don't know if it's amazing. You're going to tell us in the next 10 minutes. I'm sure it's great. He's sending some to me as well. But the sense is this, right? Shopify has already released. The Non-Fungible Labs Fluff House website is a Shopify Web 3.0 website that can tell what NFTs you have in your wallet. And so on Matt's brewery website, he could set it up so that anyone that has, I'm not going to make him do this, but anyone that has a Drug Receipts NFT gets a completely different experience, different content, different pricing, different shipping, whatever it is. The sense that these NFTs will completely change our experience, and that your NFT can go out and find websites that, like, while you're asleep, with our AI NFTs that we've developed, it'll go out and find these things for you and go, hey, by the way, this is, Dewey Brewery's doing this awesome offer for people that have Drug Receipts NFTs. It's crazy. Wow. Okay, so I've been buying you some time here, buddy. Let's go. What's going on? Okay, well, God. Years from now, we go, remember when you thought that unboxing a well-packaged package was fantastic viewing? Like, what's going on? It's like watching a 3-year-old at Christmas. I just want to help you. What's going on?
Oh, man.
And then, Arlo, what's the deal here, just to prove how youthy you are? You're going to shotgun, or what are you doing with this? Is it a bottle?
Yeah.
Oh, this is...
Smells like beer. Oh, okay. Man, they might be open.
Oh,
God,
well, yeah. I see. Okay. So, Matt Lindemuth, just a bit of feedback on your beer. You want to make ones that are closed. Closed beer is, I don't know how you're doing it. And
Brooke, I owe you the money. He's wearing pants.
Oh, okay. That is good. Hey, are you upset that you got some beer on your hands?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I would have just continued. You take it out, drink,
No, beer is dripping out of one. I can't put it on my desk.
That's compelling television.
But I have 2 other packages.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, in my day, TV, that I would have kept that going. And that's, I guess, Arlo had a brief stint. You did some stuff with the X Games and MTV, right? Like
he did,
minor appearances. Okay. There you go. Okay. Oh, wow. They look great.
Aren't they beautiful?
And in those ones, it looks like they're completely sealed. So that's how they're making beer these days. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. Thanks, Matt. Yeah,
okay.
These are awesome.
Are you gonna have some, Arlo?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
Should we bring back your old extreme sports format?
Just move it.
Oh.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely do have beer on my hands.
Oh,
okay.
No.
Cool. So, Tyler, you were regretting that you don't have any X Games medals to point to.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're going to have even more regrets after this next segment, because I've got some old pictures from Spawn Ranch of me and Brooke. And Tyler is not in these pictures, so we'll have to dig up some old.
I was too young for Spawn Ranch.
This is actually before your time.
Yeah.
This is the very beginning of kind of the rollerblading scene in California as we were all coming together.
I need to caution people there. Oh, you go. You go.
When I was a kid, they made all these videos, and there was this thing called Spawn Ranch. Now, none of us knew, because I grew up in Florida. Like, none of us knew about Charles Manson or Spawn Ranch or anything like that. So we're all at the skate park telling all these parents how our dream is to go to Spawn Ranch.
Yeah.
And everyone's like thinking that we want to go visit where Charles Manson lived.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
So a friend of ours who also was one of the owners in Senate, but a guy named Aaron Spahn owned a house in Westchester, California, kind of by LAX. So the house was called Spahn Ranch. And what it was a house that had a half pipe in the backyard. And
two half pipes.
2 half pipes. Yes, 2 half pipes. And all the guys that lived there, I think it was probably 4 roommates, maybe 3 or 4 roommates. They were all like Venice Beach roller skaters. So they all knew each other from like roller skating on the beach before rollerblading ever came on the scene. So these are like old school, like Venice heads. And then as we all started moving to California, started congregating on Venice Beach, it's where I met Brooke, was on Venice Beach, jumping barrels, doing that stuff. We started getting the attention of the roller skaters and sort of made some inroads with them. And as they started having vacancies in this house in Spahn Ranch, saw an opportunity to move in a new generation of skaters that might appreciate having a half pipe in the backyard. And so that's what Spahn Ranch was. And so eventually it became all rollerbladers, essentially. Mark Shays, I think, was in there, B-Love, Brooke, Chad Grout. Is it possible all these people actually all lived there at one point?
I would like you to intentionally forget Mike Opalek, just to kind of
Michael
rub it
Palak,
in.
of course.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Michael Palak was my eternal roommate. Mike and I lived together for years after that, starting with Spahn Ranch. But yeah, so Joellen, let's show them some pictures here.
And I just need to warn you that there was a time that ponytails was still an acceptable hairstyle.
Listen, there's a lot about these photos, right, Brooke, that we might have to.
Wow, look at that guy.
Arlo's opening a box. What is this?
Right? It's
no,
Inception. It's layers of box opening, of unboxing.
And you can see on my face, I'm like, speed this up. This is not compelling entertainment.
Some things never change.
Also, do I look as tall as the ceiling there? Does it look like I'm hitting?
You look like a giant for sure. And you look like you've got homeless person shoes on for some reason.
Shut up. So
this is like a
giant photo.
Can you see how there's a hat on the wall that is where Arlo would be, and there's a hat where normal people would be, and then I'm proving that I'm like quite a bit taller than normal people.
Well, Arlo's standing up here; he's not even sitting down. So.
It's so funny. It's kind of true.
You were quite a bit taller than most rollerbladers at the time. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And oh my god! Listen, this is Randy Mello messaged me yesterday.
What? No way.
Yeah, you're going to find, and Randy might be watching this, so heads up, Randy, you're going to find when your company becomes like a massive multi, it's going well. A lot of people start to get in contact with you. So I got Randy dropped me a line yesterday.
That's crazy.
I'm back on Eurofunk, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Done. Yeah, moving along.
Yeah,
Next photo, please.
Go ahead, bring up that other one because that was cool. So Brooke. So Brooke's got his shirt off there and he's got his long flowing hair and that's quite beautiful. Brooke, do you know who that is all the way on the right in the oxygen shirt?
On the right on an oxygen shirt on the right. Oh, is that Caesar? No, Scott Bentley. It's Scott Bentley.
Yep, Scott Bentley.
Yep. It looks so clean for Scott.
I know.
Looks like that must have been a brand new day for Scott. But I like to think, look, I've got the homeless shoes on again. Great photo, Arlo. That's wonderful.
So this is Spahn Ranch. This is out in front of Spahn Ranch. And the photo that Joellen showed before of us on the interior, that was inside. That was the living room of Spahn Ranch. And we used to always put a P rail out in front in the street. That's where we would session. And you see those pants that I'm wearing, those big pants. I've always maintained this fantasy of myself. I'm like, whenever people make fun of the 90s, the early 90s, and when everybody's wearing Jinkos and the big jeans, I've always said, yeah, but I didn't wear them. My company sold them, but I never wore the big jeans. And until I saw these photos, I was comfortable believing that lie that I was telling myself. But now I've really been doxxed here. I guess I did wear the big jeans. So.
And I just there's a lot of talk about
Thank you.
There we go. That's great. Look how big they are. They're crazy. And they're kind of high tide big pants as well.
Look, even Arlo's upset about the box opening.
Yeah. Always opening boxes. Story of my life.
I wonder what Matt Lindemuth sent him that day. That's fantastic. Great. Okay. Yep. Great. This has to be the first time on a podcast, particularly a crypto/NFT podcast, we've just like throwback photos. That's great. Brand new.
So they're easy. So
wow.
That's the ramp in the backyard.
that is the ramp in the backyard.
What is this
and
thing?
that
What is this?
that
What
is the mural that they painted on Brooke. Is that mural on the neighbor's house?
Yeah, it is. And you know, this house was so crazy, guys. I'm going to give you like the three things. I'll try to keep it down to three things that people wouldn't believe today. Step one, Scott Bentley lived at Spawn Ranch for a while under the table, the kitchen table, and the back door used to open up and it would hit his head. Like, because he couldn't fit under the whole table. And like, so people would open it up and you just hear, fuck off. Like kind of like an angry Scott Bentley when you open up the door. There was a time where like during the championships, there'd be like people sleeping in the hallways. And also how we didn't die, we'd put the trampoline. Remember we put the trampoline in the middle and you jump from one side of the vert, trampoline up to the other side of the vert. It's crazy.
Brooke, people also slept under the ramp. People slept outside and,
like
on the ramp.
You mean Scott Bentley? So when Scott got kicked out of the house,
yeah,
he went and slept under the ramp, and then out he camped out, and you know, anyways.
But when we had competitions, like when NIST, the first National Inline Skate Series, would come, and it would be in Venice Beach, and so people came from all over the world, from South America, from Japan, from Europe, and so a lot of them would descend on Spawn Ranch, and so there would be sleeping bags all over the ramps, under the ramps. Yeah, they'd be all over the living room. Yeah. It was an incredible time.
There wasn't a lock on. You remember
Brooke in the Senate shirt too? While we're talking,
do you remember there wasn't a lock on the door? Oh, look at that. So there was a period. I've kind of mentioned this period of douchebaggery in my life where I only wore white. So I don't know why, but there's a lot of douchebaggery. But that's a classic Senate T-shirt there.
I think it's a great, Brooke. I think you look really great here.
Well, I look in shape is what I look. Thank you. Thanks. I'll show that to my wife.
Logo.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Thanks, Joellen. Those are great.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a lovely period of time.
And so, yes, Tyler, I would love to have some historical Tyler photos in here as well. We'll have to get that into the queue.
Yeah, 100%. And thanks, Vicky, for those photos. Like,
right. I should have mentioned, right. So the reason I have those photos is like last week I had dinner with my mother. She brought over an old photo album she has, and there's a lot more stuff in there, Brooke, which I'll show you offline.
Oh yeah.
But it's just, I mean, it's such a
let's just do 6 more hours of photos in me. I think
next episode, all historical photos all the time. Family photo albums. I'm actually, Brooke, no, I'm mercifully not showing you photos of me with my family, with my grandmother and my cousin. Yeah. So yes, but that was fun. And Brooke, despite your protests or your objections, that there is historical significance to those photos.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Senate T-shirt, very cool. And it's such a snapshot of a time. So guys, that's good talk. Thank you for all of that. We're gonna move on. To the question and answers portion of the show. So now is where we will get some input from our drug snugglers. I think we put a lot of content out there. Drug snugglers, you are up. It's time to get some questions from you. We can, Brooke, Tyler, and I, we will all address those. Tyler, did you like that title there?
I loved it. And also your mother says she's going to give photos of me for next time, which I'm very curious to see. Yeah.
Wait, and so, right, she is the source. She's the archivist. I struggled with this last time, archivist. And Tyler used to spend every summer during summer camp at our house. So no doubt my mother's got those photo albums as well. So we got to get them.
Yep.
Yes, my mother now has an official role to play for drug receipts. Thank you. So guys, questions and answers. And now we're going to test our production capabilities here a little bit. Let's see how we can get the questions.
I have a couple questions that have come in on my
do you?
On my Instagram and on my Twitters, but go ahead and go off whatever's on here, and then when you're ready for me.
I don't have anything yet, so if you got a good one, let's throw it out there.
Okay. Let's see here.
Here we go.
What is one of the craziest stories you guys remember from being on tour together?
What? I mean, I guess we'll answer that. Go ahead.
No, I'd want a bit of prep time for that.
Okay, great.
That's like, I mean, I guess that is good. I feel like that's like a generic question, you know?
Sure. Hey, listen, I'm just reading them as they come. Okay. So, if the NFT community had never existed, would you have ever done anything more with this project than them just being physical drug receipts?
Hey, can pause 1 second. I came up with a story that I think is kind of funny because I think it involves you.
That's craziest story. Okay.
It's not crazy. It's not crazy. But I think it involves you because I think, did you come to that competition in Prague where they paid us in counterfeit money? Oh, well, then that's not a good story. But John Julio, I believe it was John Julio was there. And then the next comp was in Switzerland and we all went to change the money at the same place. We got arrested.
Oh, no.
Anyways, okay. Anyway, so moving on. What's another? I was just trying to think of something that wasn't too crazy.
Yeah,
at the
that's
moment,
amazing.
Crazy, but not too crazy, or crazy for the right reasons.
Yeah,
without being incriminating. I gotcha.
Yeah, that's right.
Tyler, to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even before this, already, right? I was making T-shirts, making art prints. I started a website. I mean, it's just in my nature, right? I am a marketer. I'm a merchandiser. I'm a creator. So projects always grow. And so when this came along, this was a no-brainer. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, got a question there, Arlo. Can you see that one?
What would who's sending me these? From Kenneth Smith? What would each of your opinions be on a Snuggler created DAO based around drugs? So this question comes up somewhat frequently.
Also, guys, I like the way that drugs is spelled with an X, drugs, like that. That's kind of cool, right?
Yes. So yes. So this kind of dovetails with the last question Tyler asked, because I've also done some collaborations with drug receipts. I did one with Vibrolux, which is a skate company. They do skate accessories and clothing. And so our collaboration was called Drugs, D-R-U-X. Drug receipts was the DR, UX from Vibrolux. You put them together, you got drugs. So it is a great name. It's very cool, but it is that collaboration.
So does that mean Dave? Is Dave? How's he going? Do you stay in contact with Dave?
Dave who? Dave Temple?
Dave Temple. Isn't that Vibrolux?
Oh, dude, no way. You got So, but God, that's funny. So Adam Johnson and Dave Temple are both from Kansas City, and I guess they were partners at one point. But geez, that takes it way back. Huh.
Okay.
Dave Temple was a hell of a guy.
Dave Temple.
Well, he's still with us. He's still with us. I'm sure, right?
Rest in peace. I should pour out one of my beers.
Pour out one of your Matt Lindemuth beers. Okay. So, sorry. So yes. Okay. Would we consider a DAO around drug receipts or drugs? Obviously, is probably less relevant. Those of you don't know what a DAO is, a decentralized autonomous organization. It would allow people to have more of a democratic vote in what's happening. And
Arlo, you know how I feel about that.
Arlo Eisenberg has a very firm opinion on, other people's opinions.
There you go. Uh-huh.
So you know what? I think you should come up with a set like the opposite of a decentralized autonomous.
That I like.
Oh,
I like
so it's like a centralized autonomous.
Centralized autocratic
organization. Yeah. So like everyone puts their money in, and then you make a decision. That's what this is.
Yeah. This is good.
Yeah. Okay.
Arlo, next
you really
question.
are leading on the cutting edge of innovation. I like it.
Yeah. Will there be a Tyler Shields and Drug Receipts physical gallery that has NFTs? So like the NFTs would be on the screens, and then it'd be physical prints, or even my NFTs. It's not really clear, but would we ever do a show with Drug Receipts and me and my?
Guys, so we are very careful, or we should be very careful in these kinds of things to overcommit or to commit to things that haven't actually been planned yet. But yes, from the very moment we put this dream team together, all those things were on the table. And so anyone who doesn't think that those are the kinds of things that we're talking about is not paying attention or just doesn't know who we are. So,
are you getting angry? Are you getting angry at the question?
Oh yeah. Here we go. I'm getting worked up now. Don't question the Drug Receipts General Services Incorporated here. Yes. No, I'm not getting angry. I'm getting excited. Those two emotions are right next to each other, and they feel the same.
Yeah.
But yes, there's so many incredible, awesome things that we are capable of doing. So yeah, I think your thinking is right on on target.
Can I tell you as well? Or you go.
Go ahead, Brooke.
So when you have these first 10,000 NFTs that are sold, and we are hoping that around 3,000 to 5,000. What are you laughing at, Arlo Eisenberg? You laughing
because now I can
me?
see the chat going on, and it reminded me of a crazy story. So go ahead.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So the best part. Oh God, no! I was just going to go on another tirade about how fucking awesome NFTs. That's fine.
Oh no, be careful. So let me tell you a crazy story instead.
Yeah, let's go.
So, and this is the perfect kind, like you were looking for, right? It's not incriminating, but it is kind of funny and ridiculous. But so at a competition in France, I believe it was, yes, at Bercy.
Oh, I'd like this story, but you can tell it. Go for gold.
No, do you know what story I'm going to tell? You don't know.
Okay, okay.
Maybe you've got a different one. But so at a competition, so there, I was there with my pregnant wife at the time, the mother of my child, Lulu's mom. And we were staying at a hotel in France. And after the competition was over, the skate teams were going to go on tours throughout Europe. And so my wife and I were going to travel with the USD team. I think USD and Solomon were traveling together. And so the night before, they said, okay, everybody, we're going to meet out in the lobby, and then we'll all load up on the bus and we'll go out. And great. And so the night before, I'm asking everybody on the team, I'm saying, I just want to make sure that we know what time, so, that we can make sure we're on the bus, don't leave us, because my wife and I are coming. Everybody's like, cool, we got you. No worries. Next day, my wife and I walk out to the lobby, crickets. No one's there. Where is everyone? No one in France speaks English, at least they didn't back then. And so no one at reception was able to tell us what was going on. Fortunately, mercifully, Salima, a skater who, where's she from? Switzerland, who spoke French. She helped us, and she called, got them on the phone. They left. The Solomon USC teams loaded up their bus, left me and my pregnant wife in France. And when we asked, what the hell were y'all thinking? How can this happen? We asked everyone the night before, make sure you don't leave us. The team manager, Mark Corte, said, when we got on the bus, I asked if everyone was here. In fact, I guess me and my wife were the only ones who didn't raise our hands, right? So what the hell? I mean,
Mark
we did catch back up with them, but it was such a bummer.
I
felt so bad for my wife,
Oh, and Mark Corte is infrequently in touch, or kind of like, so shout out to Mark if you're watching from wherever he is. He's in Europe, I think, still. I'll make this one quick, but because it was a French story. I don't know if you were in at this Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat comp, which is right in this beautiful part of France, right on the water, and the comp had finished. It was hot as fuck, and there was a little restaurant right above, like where the comp was. It's a lovely little restaurant, and we went up there, and we had Salima, and we had all of Thai Chris, we had all these French-speaking people there who offered to help us navigate the menu. But I did French in sixth form and seventh form. Like when I was 16, 17 years old, I did French at school. And I wasn't going to, this is again, period of overconfidence, strong overconfidence from me. And so I was like, no, please let me order myself. And I went through and I picked this item, filet de something I was like, steak. I feel like steak is a good idea. And the waiter kind of like nodded approvingly. And then went back out, and then a couple of people from the kitchen came out and looked. They're like,
I know this. I was there.
Like, yeah. And they're like, oh, they're like, I feel like, okay, they're kind of approving of my brilliant French.
Yeah.
And when everyone's food is out, and mine is last to come out, and the team from the kitchen come out, and they drop this big steak in front of me, and it kind of smells bad. And and now in hindsight, I the rest, all the French people at the table had stopped to watch me. Everyone had stopped to watch me, and so I kind of carve into the steak, and I put it in my mouth, and it's kind of chewy, and it's like it stunk, and it tasted terrible. It was like there was nothing good about it. And I was like, oh, this is awful. And then Jess Darrenforth, mentioned it before, kind of pointed at the steak, and he was like, why is there a hole running all the way through the steak? Is it a urethra? I was eating a fucking horse's penis. And so I'd already got through like 2 or 3 really large pieces of horse's penis before. And then I'd been skating all day, and it was hot. And I gave myself a good 10 seconds before it was, going to be like everywhere. And as I ran down the stairs, I managed to run fast enough to run into my own vomit. You know, your projectile vomit. And I was running to get out there, vomited on myself. And there's a great photo in a magazine somewhere of me holding up this kind of, it's not a small, I'm guessing it's, you know, I mean, I feel for the horse. The horse has got a worse story when you think about that. I was just standing in a field one day when some French fuck cut off my penis.
Yeah, right. You thought you had a bad day. Poor horse.
Oh, dear. That's okay. Those are stories.
Nice one. So, guys, I think that's a lot of great conversation. Unless we have another question that I'm missing, I'm going to move on to the next section. And you guys, of course, are welcome to hang out and contribute, but we're going to start to get into a little bit of skeptic talk. Because, you know, we keep making such a big deal of, you know, stop questioning everything. This is going to be a project that gives you the tools to kind of like navigate and consume information more critically and more responsibly. So we like to have a section of the podcast where we make good on that promise and actually talk a little bit about the tools and techniques we can use to be better communicators and consumers of information. So the segment is called Controlled Substance. So we will get into, we will officially wander into that portion of the conversation. And there they are, Brooke and Tyler, thanks. So we're bringing you guys along. And Brooke, I think one of the ways that honestly that we're going to talk about this, and I hope that's not getting too personal, but you know, one of the crazy stories from our past is Brooke and I worked very closely, and we were very close. We were very close friends. We worked together. I mean, so much of our lives were intertwined, and we were so, and we still probably are similar in so many ways that it could be a very combustible relationship. And we would get into deep, heated arguments quite often, which I didn't even recall. I sort of had forgotten about that dynamic of our relationship, Brooke, until it came back to the forefront of our collective consciousness. But so there was a time when Brooke and I were on, you know, we were at Senate. We had a basketball court out in the parking lot. We were playing basketball, which sounds a lot cooler and probably a lot more credible than it actually was. You know, I'm saying that we were playing basketball, but what it would have looked like in reality would have been something a lot different and a lot less impressive. But, you know, we got into one of our arguments. We were yelling, and I'm sure about something of no consequence, right? We just were getting heated at it and at each other's throats. And it came to blows. You know, I swung and hit him, and he hit me and busted my head open. I had to go to the hospital and get stitches. So not only does Brooke have a X Games bronze medal, he also can claim that he sent someone to the hospital to get stitches after, you know, decking me. So that was real, like, I guess, acceptable discourse, right? Just poor conflict resolution skills. And the reason I bring it up is because Brooke and I got into a spat earlier this week. Something came up, and, you know, it got my emotions stirred up a little bit. And so I got probably more animated than I needed to be. But the nice thing about it was we both made a conscious effort in real time to call on our more deliberative, rational skills. And even as hard as it was in some moments when, you know, I know that I was in the grips of my emotion, I relied on, and we both relied on some of the skills. We made an actual effort to use those skills and to deploy them and to give us an opportunity to get out of the emotional quagmire and to try and find some constructive resolution, which we did. And it meant doing things like self-evaluating and finding where we were wrong. So we would both apologize, right? And point out where we made mistakes. We made an effort to listen to each other, right? And we also were diagnosing in real time, just sort of admitting or acknowledging when we were emotional, so that we kind of were creating the space to give ourselves an opportunity to work through it and to cool down, and not to just blindly follow the emotions. And, you know, to Brooke's credit, not to indulge the emotions. You know, he made every effort to not have it be something that was just going to get completely derailed into a shitfest where we were arguing. So, it's never nice to get into an emotional heated spat, but there was something very encouraging about, having those skills, having the skills to work through it and find a peaceful and constructive resolution. And one of the nice things about skepticism, I think an important thing to talk about here is, we mentioned it a little earlier in the show when we were talking about the name of the show, right? One of the working titles as we were workshopping kind of the way you can update this notion of questioning everything was to question your biases. But so our brains, the thing that's happening inside our own heads, more than anything else we will ever engage with or confront in our lives, that is the thing that we have to contend with the most. And that is the thing that will be responsible for most of the deceptions that we ever are faced with. And so figuring out how we can work through our own biases, our own deceptions, is the very first and perhaps the most critical step in being an effective skeptic. And so similarly, when Brooke and I were having our spat, being able to figure out where you are wrong personally in a conversation, whether you've taken a position on something controversial or whether it's just in a personal dialogue, always taking the time and sort of honing the skills to be self-reflective and to find your own fault will go a long way. Now, this ties into the community a little bit because we had a similar flare-up, nowhere near as animated or as personal, but in the Discord community, one of our members, and I don't think that any of the names are here, but just sort of the dynamics of the conversation are kind of interesting. But one of the members had posted a provocative question in the Skeptic channel. And he said, essentially, he started by saying, I want to ask something that's kind of strange. It's a hypothetical question. Is that okay? And the med who was in the channel, Jesse, said, okay, yeah, great, let's do it. And so then he posed this question. He said, it was something about, if a man sodomizes a turkey and then cooks it and then serves it to his family, it was sort of like, what are the moral implications of that? Has he done something wrong, essentially? Is that morally objectionable? But so it's sort of it's getting into this deep philosophical question of, how do we define morals and the difference, whatever. My point, honestly, is we're not going to do a deep dive on the merits of that conversation itself. Really, what I want to talk about is what Brooke and I discovered, or what Brooke and I put into practice, but it's the rules of engagement. It's the right way to deal with something that comes up that is contentious. Because after he posed that question, after that question was posed, what he said was, that's for you, Jesse, who's our moderator, who's a female moderator. And then some of the members in the post, in the thread, objected, said, wow, that's kind of what sexual harassment looks like, or that's kind of inappropriate, to make this sort of sexually explicit scenario and then direct it directly to a female member. It all feels kind of wrong and not very comfortable. And so then that could have de-escalated very quickly into something that was completely emotional and explosive, and could have derailed into just vitriol and sort of name calling back and forth. It's the kind of thing that you could imagine in other forums would have led to calls to have the member who posted the original objectionable post, have him canceled, censor him, or remove him from the community. The people who reacted to it, in other communities, perhaps they would have been accused of being, on a witch hunt, or being overly sensitive, or, not open to kind of provocative conversations. But none of that happened. All parties involved, I thought, took great steps and went to great lengths to preserve the integrity of the conversation and to explore where there was perhaps room for improvement, like maybe recognizing that when you say something sexually explicit, maybe be more clear and upfront about the kind of content that you're going to present, provide better context so that everybody can process it appropriately. But then also, and the person who posted the content, rather than jump straight to vilifying that person for perhaps making a misstep or a miscalculation, but giving them room to kind of defend their motives or sort of explain their thinking and not cast them purely as a bad actor. Because I thought that there were no bad actors in this interchange or in this exchange. There were some things that probably could have been done better. And I think that all the people involved will do better in the future. But I think that the rules of engagement kept it from devolving into something unattractive, and that I think that it gave everyone an opportunity to grow and learn a little bit from the episode.
Yeah.
Brooke, were you going to say something?
I was going to make a joke, and now
great.
the time has passed. No, I'm just trivializing a really important piece, and I think, from my part, I mentioned Arlo. One of the reasons maybe we brought this up is that I am someone that thinks that I'm smart enough, well, at least the way that I've behaved in the past in an argument, to be able to maneuver around a point. So even when I know I've made a misstep and I'm wrong, I maybe misinterpreted data, didn't have enough of the information, I will start to just glaze over that and move to another point, find another angle of attack, in an effort to not look silly, right? And an effort to win and retreat from the argument with some kind of, and obviously that just is, it's time consuming. You end up with this knot in your stomach because all you're doing is trying to point score. There needs to be a loser. Often online, one of the key points here is it's happening in a public forum. So you've got a gallery watching, which is awful. So utilizing some of what I'm learning from Arlo now and from this piece of identifying, the moment you're able to say, hey, I think I didn't have all the information, I was wrong. It's really clear that I was wrong there. And then moving through that, it completely and utterly deflates the argument. There's very little, you can't really go anywhere from that. And it was really interesting. So I'm really interested in this part of this project. I mean, it's a really interesting, fascinating part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love what you said there, because it is so true. As you move into skepticism, and it recalibrates kind of the things that you value. And exactly as you identified, Brooke, right? So it changes the way that you engage in sort of dialogue, and especially contentious dialogues, where your priorities and your goals move from being right, which is how most of us typically enter any debate or contentious dialogue. Is like we want to be right, and so then, as you said, we have all kinds of tricks at our disposal to maneuver to always defend our position, whether the position is right or not. And there are all kinds of cognitive and logical tricks that we will get into in other episodes that allow us to do that. All forms of cognitive dissonance that allow us to believe ideas that are wrong, even after it's been demonstrated they're wrong. But we're so committed to being right in our own mind that we dig our heels in. But when you change through skepticism, when you change your ambition, your goal from being right in an argument to being on the right side of the argument, then everything changes. If you want to be on the right side of the argument, then you are open to new evidence, even if it's not your side of the argument. And so then such a cool thing happens, and it's so counterintuitive. It's not how any of us, our brains naturally work. But once you start to recalibrate your brain, you actually start to take pride in admitting that you're wrong, because it's a way to demonstrate your skepticism and your openness to new ideas and your willingness to be right. It's like it shows how committed you are to being right, that you will even admit if you are not on the right side. And then in that way, you are always growing and moving toward a more defensible sense of truth.
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's great. And so a couple of things I'll add to that, just sort of an academic, some footnotes that I'll add to it. So there is a Russian-born American game theorist named Anatol Rapoport, and he established rules for engagement in contentious dialogue that have been summarized in a lot of other writing. So this is not something that I've not discovered this on my own, but I'm leaning on kind of other writers that I've read, people like Daniel Dennett. But so what they say is, in order to be effective in any kind of contentious dialogue, you always have to start with these rules first before you enter into any form of critique. And this is kind of in the interest of rules of engagement, right? Of being a good and constructive and thoughtful and considerate partner in any discussion. And so the rules go like this. So first, you want to attempt to restate your opponent's argument in the most generous, favorable terms. So favorably and so fairly that if they had said it themselves, or that they would say to you, that's better than I could have stated it myself. So I think we're all familiar with kind of like straw manning an argument, right? This concept where you mischaracterize your opponent's argument in such a way that it's so absurd that no one would defend it. And so it just makes it easy to shoot holes in the argument. We are all guilty of it. But so what Rappaport's rules are advocating for here is that we actually steel man our opponent's argument. Figure out what is the best way you could characterize their argument, and not condescendingly, like really trying to understand their argument so you can say it back to them better than they could say it themselves. And then after that, look for any points of agreement. And Brooke and I did this a lot in real time. I like to think of real examples as we do this, because it's not just academic what we're talking about. These are real things that we can put into practice. But for when you're talking about something contentious, start with the points where you agree, because it lays a groundwork and sort of a safe space where you both agree that you're kind of trying to find common ground. It's not just about where you disagree, but it's about moving you both toward a place where maybe you can find some kind of a consensus. So always look for the places where you agree. And then mention anything that you've learned from your opponent, because invariably you will hear things, right, that you weren't expecting or that you did not know, and you will definitely learn things from the other side. And there's two virtues that come from that. One is that maybe you'll learn something, but the other thing is that it means that you have to listen to your opponent. Don't just be thinking about your own arguments in your own head. If you're really genuinely interested in growing and trying to work to a place of understanding, then you've got to listen to the person that you're engaged with. And then after all of that, and only after all of that, then you can start to try and figure out how you get into the critiques and finding the places, trying to articulate the ways that you guys disagree. But so these are just the rules, right? The idea, guys, right, is because in any engagement, what we're looking for, even if we think, if we're talking to a family member who we think has got, the wrong idea about whatever it is, fill it up here, vaccines or whatever it is. The only way you can ever move toward some kind of understanding is if all parties agree to engage in civil and respectful discourse. And so using some of these tools as we engage in those kinds of conversations, I think will help to make us all better communicators and debaters, for what it's worth.
And, I'm really interested in game theory. It's not something, and I know it's really big in the crypto and NFT space, and it's interesting to me. I don't know, Tyler, have you ever had any interactions with game theory?
Yeah, I mean, I think our entire, or at least my entire childhood with rollerblading was one big game theory. Okay. A lot of my childhood was definitely in that sense of, but I think I was just listening. I don't know if it looked like I was just zoning out, but I was just listening really deeply to what Arlo was saying, trying to put myself in that place of how many times do I do that? Like how many times do I think, we're all very smart people. We're all very street smart people at the least. And so a lot of that survival method from my youth, I think, comes into arguments and things, right? So I've already figured out how to win the argument before the argument even happens. Yeah. And then while I'm in the middle of it, like Brooke was saying, if it goes a way where you don't want it to go, you completely annihilate that version of it so that it steers in the direction that you want it to go. So I was just zoning out, completely listening to that point of view. But yeah, I mean, for me, one of the things that I do a lot of is I do something called remote viewing, which is I visualize things, in so many different ways. So like I'll visualize a shoot in every single aspect of how anything could possibly happen. And now, because I've done it so much, I game that entire thing out. So like I've already lived the shoot before it ever happens 1,000 times or 10,000 times or whatever it is. And that's kind of my version of that. I think that's something I do every day.
Tyler, I have to warn you, or just as a funny sidebar, but as a skeptic, I have to tell you that there is actually a thing called remote viewing. Do you know what it is? It's a pseudo.
I know that there's
the CIA had like programs to study it, but it's basically like putting photos or things in an envelope, and then people somewhere at some remote site are trying to divine what is hidden in the other room, or what's on the map. It's complete bullshit. But that's not what you described. But you did use the same term, so I just don't want there to be.
Yours is more of a visualization, right?
More of a visualization. Yeah. So yes. Whereas I'll game out a day. Like, what is this going to look like? And then if I'm here and I'm shooting this, I'm doing this. I'm not looking at an envelope saying what's the photo in the envelope, and I need to make that. So no, Arlo, not that.
Okay, just I knew that wasn't what you were saying, but it is the same term. So I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, my bad.
Hey, are we gonna get in these things to kind of some of those interesting, like pseudoscience well-held beliefs, or is that too controversial?
Wait, what?
Like not today, but at some point in time, will we tackle actual well-held beliefs that are, or is that too controversial?
No question. And there is one going on right now in the Skeptic channel on the Drug Receipts Discord, and they are talking about. There's a couple of them that have come up. I wish Dia was here. Because Rupert Sheldrake, who is an avowed pseudoscientist, has become a topic of conversation in that channel. And I think there are people giving some kind of like, not completely critical time to some of the claims being made there. I'm not prepared to talk to him about it here just because I haven't had the time.
No, but I'd like to in future. That sounds like
we'd like to bring those things into here for deeper conversation. Absolutely. And because Brooke, some of those things, the deeply held beliefs, which is something you said, the deeply held beliefs, we will put those off. I don't think that those are always the best way to sort of talk about skepticism or demonstrate the tools of skepticism. It's better when you're doing it with stuff that people aren't deeply invested in. You don't want to talk about using the tools of skepticism to poke holes in, anyone's preferred religion, for instance. It's just the stakes are too high. But if you talk about Bigfoot, most people won't care, but you can teach them the tools, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Yeah, so that's coming up. Guys, so we are close to wrapping it up. And Brooke, you will be happy. We're going to get this in maybe under 2 hours. So I know we had some concerns about that.
It's not concerns. I've just never, it's a 2 hours. It's
long form for sure. For sure.
It is long, but it's, listen, I enjoy it. I could talk to you forever. So,
cool.
As long as forever was until just under 2 hours.
I have a couple questions real quick before we go. Number one, Brooke, do you remember which hand you hit Arlo with when you?
It's hard to say because the left is also, I like a left, like just a little left hook. I used to think of myself as a fighter, and Roland kind of brought up that I brought it up on the Jump Street podcast, how we used to just fight in the lobby. This poor company full of people, Arlo and I, for those people that don't know, I'm sure everyone here does know, Senate became a very big company with like 30 plus employees, a full warehouse staff, and a receptionist. And we would go through the receptionists. They would just be like, what the fuck is going on here?
Do you next question, Brooke, do you remember when you hit me with a telephone?
I probably know. It sounds very Russell Crowe-y, doesn't it? It's like, I'm from New Zealand. Eat this. Boom. Telephone. So sorry, Tyler. And they would have been big phones in those days too.
Yes.
Fuck.
I was walking down the hallway at Senate, and I just happened, because you were screaming at somebody, and I was just walking by, and a phone came out. I mean, you hit me in the leg, but I was fine.
I was so bad. I think I've told this story, and Ali, you may remember this. So what a way to wrap this up. So firstly, secretary, would have to deal. We would have full on like fights in the lobby to kind of prime ourselves for fighting, like full on fights with like whatever. And so that was petty. And those days we'd do these fights and get way out of hand. Anytime you're play fighting and then someone punches you in the head, it just stops being play fighting, right? But I don't even know, like, to talk about. No, that's a terrible subject to bring up. Do you remember when I was getting death threats, Arlo? Do you remember that? And they were serious. Like the guy was across the street. So there'd be a guy across the street in Huntington Beach where we had Senate, and I'd get a call, or the company would get a call, but I'd get a call and be like, "I'm watching you from across the street. When you leave today, I'm going to kill you."
No way.
I'll be like, yeah. And it was like a period that was just like gnarly because it's Los Angeles, and I've been through, there's a lot of great stories about how close I came to dying in LA. And then in the end, it ended up being, was it Pilar? Was that her name? It was her boyfriend. And
Really?
we'd just made their life so awful as like young, like I was just such a dick that she was coming home sad. This is such a sad story. This is not Brooke. This is awful. Either that or potentially thought I was sleeping with. I don't know what the deal was, but eventually,
more likely the second one there.
I don't know, but whatever it was, he used to call me, and we only found out about this because he admitted it to Heineken years later.
Huh? So crazy.
Anyways, Senate, you crazy days. So whatever it was, I was not sleeping with Pilar, and he did not kill me. So that's good news. Great news all around. What a way to wrap up a cheery.
Earlier in the show, you mentioned that Brooke and I each said something that you always remembered, and you told this story about what Brooke said, but you never got around to saying what I said. And I am so vain that I want to hear it before we sign off. But now you're on the spot. Do you actually have something?
Yes. I have a couple. Well, no, I have a couple things, but one of them, and this one I think about more than the others. So I'm going to say this one. It will only really hit people that really know my obsessive behavior with A1 steak sauce. Mm-hmm. But I eat everything with A1 sauce. Okay, I have it in every room in my house. And I remember one day I was having dinner at Arlo's house. His mother, Vicky, had cooked me a steak because she would cook me a steak. She would cook everyone else whatever else they wanted.
That's all he eats.
So I was sitting there and I'm eating my steak. I have steak, broccoli. And Arlo looks at me and he goes, "Do you ever eat anything without A1?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "So you've never tasted food in your entire life." And so every once in a while now, to this day, that was, I don't even know how long ago that was, right? I was probably 13 or 14 at the time. To this day, every once in a while, I'll be at a really, really nice restaurant. I've been afforded the luxury of being some of the greatest restaurants in the world. And I will take the first bite in a way with no A1 sauce going, "That's for you, Arlo. That's for you."
So wait, I think the better part of this
in people's lives.
The better part of this story is that you go to someone's beautiful restaurant and you bring fucking A1 steak sauce with you.
No, you don't. Not only do I ask for it, but I don't ever have it. I also take it. I take it with me, Brooke. I bring it with me.
Wow.
And the gallerist that he works with now, they know enough. They always have it on hand. Someone's got it in their purse, or they call ahead and the restaurant has it. But yes, it is a total thing. And it's not a put on. It's not like some, eccentric like artist.
Yeah. Well, it is eccentric.
He's existed. It's A1.
Yeah. But basically, Brooke, what Arlo's trying to say in a very nice way, and he is a skeptic, so he would tell you if he didn't believe that I was actually. I've been doing it since before I was even a photographer. Yeah. It's been my whole life.
Yeah. It's insane.
It is crazy.
I don't even know. So if you come to New Zealand, bring it.
I bring it with me.
I don't think we have it here.
Yeah, you don't have it. Yeah.
But Tyler, tell me this is right, because I'm pretty sure you told me this. There have been a couple places where steak is so good where he has stopped using A1.
Three places in the world. Yeah. There's three places that I don't need it.
Wow. Well, we can talk about that in our next compelling podcast, Stop Questioning Everything podcast with Arlo Eisenberg. I've had a great time, Arlo. Thank you.
Very well done. Yeah, I've had a great time, guys. This is the perfect way to do our first official podcast live and on video. All three of us here together. There'll be a lot more times for us to get together. We'll have a lot of other interesting guests on here, lots more interesting conversation. And we're going to find more ways to get all of our drug snugglers involved and in on the conversation. Guys, we'll see you in Discord. There's always a conversation going on in there. And Joellen and everyone else, thank you for helping put this together. To all of our meds, we will see you next time. This has been Stop Questioning Everything. Thank you.